Hello, everyone. Wanted to do a brief overview of this week's reading, the Bhagavad-Gita. This is another thing where I put the full text up here at the top, so it's a PDF of the whole book, of an edition of a translation from the Sanskrit into English of the Bhagavad-Gita, and then I just lay out the readings here. You don't have to click on anything. First reading, chapters 1 and 2, page numbers, and then the next reading, etc., etc. So you'll find it all here. If you click on here, what you'll get is the PDF of the whole book. Yeah, I mean, what translations we use, they're like Plato, like Sophocles, like the Bible. There's so many different translations into English. I have a tendency to choose the one that's most literary, and this is the one that was done partially by Christopher Isherwood, who is a great novelist, great writer of the 20th century. So, and it's got an introduction by Aldous Huxley, another great writer. So you don't have to read any of that introduction, but if it's by Aldous Huxley, you should read it. Dear Lord, I'm going to read it. I love Aldous Huxley. Anyway, so just look into it. What's the first reading? Starts on page 30. So everything before page 30 is translator's preface, editorial material, introduction. You don't have to read that stuff, but hey, man, Aldous Huxley wrote it. He was a great writer. I'm reading his Antic Hay right now, and it's a wonderful novel. So anyway, forgot that. So if you go through to page 30, we'll get to the beginning of the actual text of the Bhagavad Gita rather than the introductory material. So you don't have to read that, obviously, but I'm going to read it. I haven't read it yet. There's my cat. Okay, so this is where it starts, the actual Bhagavad Gita. This is the text translated in English, the Bhagavad Gita, and divided up into sections or chapters. There's probably a word in Sanskrit I should know for chapter or section, but here we are. And it starts out in a fairly confusing way because it's a story, and the Bhagavad Gita is part of a vast cycle of Hindu texts that describe these big battles and stuff, and history and religion and philosophy and drama all mixed into one. I haven't really read much in ancient Hindu literature beyond the Bhagavad Gita, so I'm not going to be much help there. My cat is really not doing well. It's too bad. Anyway, section 1, he sets things up. The basic setup is, beyond the kind of confusing opening, is that we have this great warrior, Arjuna, who is about to engage in battle. And he's fighting from a chariot. And his charioteer is the incarnation of the god Krishna. That's all we need to know. Okay, that's just like a thing. And the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between Arjuna, this human being, and Krishna, who's a god. It has taken the form of a human being. I don't know why. So when Arjuna addresses Krishna, he's addressing the divine. And when Krishna speaks, he's speaking as a god. And, the individual videos talk about the content, but, there's this one big thing that sets it off, and that is Arjuna decides, for principled reasons, that he's not going to fight in this war. He's going to throw down his weapons, and he's not going to do it. And that starts everything off. I won't give it away. But that's the beginning of the whole thing, is this moral anguish that this human being, Arjuna, the great warrior, is in. A soldier who decides that this war, which is a civil war, and it's a dynastic war, he's involved in a struggle for the throne of this kingdom. And so he knows the people on the other side, as people do in a civil war. He decides he loves them, and he's not going to fight. And so the whole book really is Krishna, the god's response to Arjuna's act, his statement, his principled refusal to fight in this war, and it takes on some very surprising things. This is a work of literature, obviously. It's a story, it's a dialogue. It is a work about religion, I guess, because it's one of the characters is a god. But it is a work of philosophy in the sense that in order to grasp fundamentals, or just to grasp the logic, the sense, the reason of Krishna's response to Arjuna, we have to follow him into some pretty heavy territory in terms of description of reality. It's a philosophical text and it's a metaphysical text insofar as it talks about the basic structure of reality. So I think to really get a sense of what Krishna's answer is, which is really not so much the first reading, maybe, yeah, the second chapter, he starts his answer, and then everything is an expansion of that answer. Arjuna asks a few questions along the way, but really it's Krishna's show at that point, after Arjuna provides the impetus for the whole thing by this dramatic act of throwing down his weapons and slumping in his chariot between the two armies, which is an incredible thing, dramatically. Very poignant. It's really Krishna's show in terms of he's got to respond to Arjuna. You'll see what his answer is, or what he tells him. But in order to really, I think, have sympathy for his answer and to give his answer a thoughtful evaluation, you really do have to follow him into some pretty heavy metaphysical territory: the nature of reality, the nature of the self, the nature of action and non-action, and all this sort of stuff. It's really quite something. So this is a work of drama, it's a work of poetry, it's a work of religion, and it's, I think, primarily, I would say, a work of philosophy.